The Georgetown University debate hall buzzed with energy as students and media packed every seat. What started as a routine political discussion was about to become the most explosive confrontation of the year. 8-year-old Barron Trump, now a freshman at Georgetown, sat confidently at the debate table. His '67 frame commanded attention as he adjusted his navy blazer, looking every bit the political heir everyone expected him to be. Across from him sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett from Texas, invited to discuss youth engagement in politics. Nobody saw what was coming next. "Congresswoman Crockett," Barron began, his voice steady and calculated. "With all due respect, your record shows you're completely unfit to guide America's youth in political engagement." The room fell silent. Students exchanged shocked glances. The cameras kept rolling. But what Jasmine Crockett pulled out next would flip this entire confrontation upside down. Hidden in her phone was a recording that would expose something nobody expected and leave Barron Trump speechless for the first time in his life. Before we dive into this incredible story, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss these explosive political moments that are reshaping America. This wasn't just a debate between a young Trump and a Democratic Congresswoman. This was about to become a masterclass in how quickly power can shift when you underestimate your opponent. At 18, Barron Trump had already made waves at Georgetown University. Standing nearly 6'8", he towered over his classmates both physically and intellectually. Unlike his siblings who jumped straight into business, Barron chose academia, political science with a focus on constitutional law. His professors described him as frighteningly intelligent and politically astute beyond his years. He'd never lost a debate in his freshman year. Students called him the Giant, not just for his height, but for the way he dominated every political discussion. Barron had stayed mostly out of the spotlight during his father's presidency and campaigns, but now he was ready to build his own political brand. Georgetown's Young Republicans club had grown by 300% since his enrollment. He was already being mentioned as a future political candidate. Tonight's debate was supposed to be his coming-out moment, a chance to show America that the Trump political dynasty had a brilliant new voice. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, 43, represented Texas's 30th congressional district. A former civil rights attorney, she'd built her reputation as one of the most fearless voices in Congress. Her viral moments during committee hearings had made her a social media sensation. Crockett grew up in St. Louis, worked her way through law school, and spent years fighting for criminal justice reform before winning her seat in 2022. She was known for her sharp questioning, her ability to cut through political nonsense, and her talent for exposing hypocrisy. What most people didn't know was that Crockett had been quietly investigating something for months, something that would soon rock the political world. This Georgetown debate wasn't just about youth politics. It represented the collision of two Americas, the Trump legacy trying to establish its next generation leader and the progressive movement's rising stars. For Barron, this was his chance to prove he belonged on the national stage. For Crockett, it was an opportunity to mentor young minds about real political engagement. Neither of them knew they were about to create one of the most viral political moments of the decade. The debate topic was engaging Generation Z in American politics. The format was simple: 45-minute discussion moderated by Georgetown's political science department chair Dr. Sarah Martinez. The audience included 200 students, faculty, and local media. C-SPAN was broadcasting live. Social media was already buzzing with anticipation. As Dr. Martinez introduced both speakers, you could feel the electricity in the room. This was the first time Barron Trump had engaged in public political discourse as an adult. This was Jasmine Crockett's first time debating a member of the Trump family. The stage was set for something explosive. Dr. Martinez opened with a straightforward question: how can we better engage young Americans in the political process? Jasmine Crockett spoke first, discussing voter registration drives, civic education, and the importance of authentic representation. Her response was measured, professional, and well-received by the audience. Then it was Barron's turn. "Thank you, Dr. Martinez," Barron began, his voice carrying the confidence of someone born into power. "I think Congresswoman Crockett raises interesting points, but I have to question whether she's the right person to guide America's youth." A murmur rippled through the audience. This wasn't the respectful academic discourse they'd expected. Barron continued, his tone remaining calm, but his words cutting deeper. "Congresswoman Crockett represents everything wrong with modern politics. She's more focused on viral moments and social media clips than actual governance. Her committee performances are theater, not substance." Students began pulling out phones, sensing this was about to go viral. Crockett raised an eyebrow, but remained composed. Furthermore, Barron pressed on. "Her voting record shows a pattern of partisan extremism that alienates moderate Americans. How can someone so divisive claim to represent unity?" Crockett leaned forward, her voice steady but with an edge. "Mr. Trump, I appreciate your passionate perspective, but perhaps before questioning my fitness for office, you should examine the record of your own family's political contributions." The room tensed. This was getting personal. Barron's jaw tightened slightly, the first crack in his composed facade. "My family's record speaks for itself, Congresswoman. We've actually accomplished things in office, not just performed for cameras." "Accomplished things?" Crockett's voice rose slightly. "Like the January 6th insurrection, like attempting to overturn a legitimate election, like the multiple indictments." That's when Barron crossed the line that changed everything. Standing to his full 68 height, towering over everyone in the room, Barron's voice took on a tone that reminded everyone exactly whose son he was. "Congresswoman Crockett, let me be very clear. Your grandstanding might play well on Twitter, but it doesn't change the fact that you are fundamentally unfit to hold office, let alone guide America's youth. Your radical agenda, your inflammatory rhetoric, your complete disregard for constitutional principles, all of it makes you a danger to our democracy." The word unfit hung in the air like a thunderclap. Students gasped. The moderator looked stunned. This had gone from academic debate to character assassination in seconds. Crockett sat quietly for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then slowly she reached for her phone. "Mr. Trump," she said, her voice now deadly calm, "before we continue this conversation about who's unfit for what, I think this audience needs to hear something." She held up her phone, finger hovering over the play button. "This is a recording from 3 weeks ago. I think it's very relevant to our discussion about fitness for political engagement." The room held its breath. Barron's confident expression flickered for the first time. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice losing some of its authority. Crockett looked directly at him, then at the cameras. "I'm about to play a recording that shows exactly what kind of political engagement you've been participating in behind closed doors." She pressed play. The audio quality was crystal clear through the room speakers. Everyone recognized Barron's distinctive voice immediately. "Look, I don't actually believe half the stuff I say in these debates. It's all about positioning for the future. These Georgetown kids eat up the constitutional law stuff, but it's just theater. Dad taught me. You say whatever gets you power, then you do whatever you want with it." A second voice unfamiliar to most. "But what about your actual positions? What do you really believe?" Barron's voice again. "Honestly, I think Dad went too far with a lot of stuff. The election fraud claims January 6th. That was a disaster, but I can't say that publicly. The base would destroy me. So I play the part, build my brand, and eventually I'll pivot to something more moderate when the time is right." The room was dead silent. You could hear people's shocked breathing. The recording kept playing, and these people I debate with, like this Crockett woman, she's actually pretty smart. Her positions aren't that radical if you really examine them. But calling her unfit and dangerous plays well with our crowd. It's all about the optics, the unknown voice. So you're saying you don't believe what you're saying about her? Barron, of course not. She's probably more qualified than half the Republicans in Congress. But admitting that doesn't help me build my political future. You have to understand, politics isn't about truth. It's about narrative, and the Trump narrative requires enemies. The final part of the recording was the most damaging. The funny thing is, I agree with Crockett on a lot of issues. Climate change, criminal justice reform, even some of her economic policies. But I'll stand up there and call her a radical, extremist, because that's what my audience wants to hear. That's how you build a following in today's politics. You tell people what they want to hear, not what's actually true. The recording ended. The silence in the room was deafening. For the first time since entering Georgetown, Barron Trump looked genuinely rattled. His face had gone pale. His usual confident posture had crumbled. He stood there, all 6'8" of him, looking like a child caught in a lie. That recording," he stammered, his composed debate persona completely shattered, "is from a conversation you had 3 weeks ago with a Georgetown journalism student," Crockett finished calmly. "A student who was working on a profile piece about you. A student who felt the public had a right to know who you really are behind the political theater." Crockett stood up, and suddenly the height difference didn't matter anymore. Her presence filled the room. "Mr. Trump, you just called me unfit for office. You questioned my qualifications, my integrity, my ability to guide young Americans. But this recording shows that you don't even believe your own attacks. You admit I'm qualified. You admit you agree with my positions. You admit that calling me dangerous is just theater for your political brand." The audience was riveted. Some students were recording on their phones. Others sat in stunned silence. "So, let me ask you this," Crockett continued, her voice building with righteous anger. "Who's really unfit here? Is it the congresswoman who's been fighting for her constituents, working on legislation, and speaking her truth? Or is it the young man who admits to lying about his positions, manipulating his audience, and building his entire political persona on deception?" Barron tried to respond, but no words came out. "You talk about constitutional principles, Mr. Trump, but the foundation of our democracy is honest discourse. It's representatives who actually believe in what they're fighting for. It's leaders who don't see politics as theater and voters as an audience to manipulate." The Georgetown students, who had been impressed by Barron's intellect and poise all year, was seeing him in a completely different light. Murmurs of shock and disappointment filled the room. I didn't mean Barron finally managed out to speak, but his usual eloquence was gone. "You didn't mean for people to hear your real thoughts," Crockett pressed. "You didn't mean for your constituents, because that's what these students are, future constituents, to know that you see them as marks to be conned rather than citizens to be served." Crockett looked directly into the C-SPAN cameras. "This is exactly what's wrong with American politics. We have young people entering the arena who see public service as performance art, who think leadership is about saying whatever gets you power regardless of truth or consequence." She turned back to Barron. "You want to talk about unfitness? Let's talk about a political candidate who admits to lying to voters, who builds their brand on manufactured outrage, and who sees democracy as a game to be won rather than a trust to be honored." The room erupted in applause. Not the polite academic clapping they'd started with, but real sustained applause from students who felt they'd witnessed something important. Barron Trump, for the first time in his 18 years, had been completely and utterly defeated. As the debate officially ended, the Georgetown auditorium buzzed with electric energy. Students clustered in groups, animatedly discussing what they just witnessed. Many were already posting clips to social media, their phones capturing every angle of Barron's stunned expression and Crockett's triumphant moment. Dr. Martinez, the moderator, struggled to restore order as they found themselves in an awkward position, struggling to defend Barron while not completely alienating their viewer base. Their coverage was notably muted compared to their usual defense of anything Trump-related. MSNBC went Allen on the A story, with multiple segments analyzing the implications. This recording shows the cynical calculation behind modern political rhetoric. Noted one host. "Here's a young man admitting he doesn't believe his own positions. He's just saying what he thinks will build his brand on campus." The reaction was swift and severe. Students who had flocked to Barron's Young Republicans' meetings began questioning everything. Membership in the club dropped by 60% within a week. "I felt betrayed," said Sarah Chen, a sophomore who had been one of Barron's most vocal supporters. "I actually changed some of my political views because his arguments seemed so compelling. Now I find out he didn't even believe what he was saying." Professor Michael Roberts, who taught Barron's constitutional law class, expressed disappointment. "Academic integrity is fundamental to everything we do here. The idea that a student would engage in public discourse while privately admitting to manipulation and deception is deeply troubling." Georgetown's administration found themselves in a delicate position. While they couldn't punish Barron for his political views, the recording raised questions about academic honesty and character that couldn't be ignored. 3 days after the debate, Barron Trump released a carefully crafted statement through his lawyer. The recording played by Congresswoman Crockett was taken out of context and represents a private conversation that was recorded without my knowledge or consent. "My political positions are sincerely held, and I stand by my critique of Congresswoman Crockett's record. This attack on my character is exactly the kind of political theater I've been working to reform." But the damage was done. The statement felt hollow after hearing his own words on the recording. Social media users quickly pointed out the irony of him complaining about political theater when he'd been caught, admitting that's exactly what his own positions were. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, used the moment to drive home larger points about political integrity. In interviews following the debate, she emphasized the importance of authentic leadership. This wasn't about destroying a young man, she explained on CNN. This was about exposing the cynical manipulation that, too, often passes for political discourse. Voters deserve leaders who actually believe in what they're fighting for. Her congressional office reported a 400% increase in donations in the week following the debate. Her social media following grew by over 200,000 new followers. Democratic leadership began talking about her as a rising star with national potential. Political analysts began dissecting what the incident meant for American politics. The recording had exposed something many suspected but rarely saw proven so clearly: that some political figures view their positions as strategic choices rather than principled stands. This is the danger of treating politics like a reality show, noted Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a political scientist at American University. When young people see political leadership as performance art, it undermines the entire democratic process. Conservative commentators struggled with the implications. Many had invested heavily in the idea that Barron represented a more intellectual, principled version of Trump politics. The recording shattered that narrative completely. Perhaps, most tellingly, the Trump family's response was notably muted. Donald Trump, who typically defended family members aggressively on social media, posted only a brief statement. "Barron is young and learning. Fake news media loves to attack my family." The lack of a more robust defense spoke volumes about how damaging the recording was, even within Trump circles. 6 months later, the effects were still rippling through political circles. Barron Trump had effectively disappeared from public political discourse. His planned spring semester course on conservative political philosophy was quietly canceled due to lack of enrollment. Georgetown students reported that he had become much more withdrawn on campus, no longer dominating political discussions in classes. The confident young man, who had seemed destined for political stardom, had been replaced by someone who appeared to be genuinely reconsidering his entire approach to public life. The Barron Trump-Jasmine Crockett confrontation became a case study in political authenticity. It demonstrated how quickly public perception can shift when private beliefs contradict public positions. More importantly, it showed the power of preparation and principle in political discourse. Crockett's victory wasn't just about having damaging information, it was about using that information strategically to make a larger point about political integrity. For young Americans watching the confrontation unfold, it provided a clear lesson. Authentic leadership requires actually believing in what you're fighting for. Voters can sense the difference between performance and principle, and in the long run, authenticity wins. In the weeks following the debate, The Georgetown journalism student who made the recording eventually came forward. Jaime Martinez no. Relation to the debate moderator was a senior working on a profile piece about political dynasties in American universities. I wasn't trying to trap him, Martinez explained in an interview with the Georgetown Voice. I was just asking follow-up questions about his positions, and he started being really candid about the difference between what he believed privately and what he said publicly. I felt like students had a right to know who they were really supporting. The ethical questions around the recording sparked their own debates about journalism, privacy, and public accountability. But most agreed that once Barron chose to attack Crockett's fitness for office, his own fitness became fair game for examination. The masterful handling of the confrontation elevated Jasmine Crockett to new heights in Democratic politics. Within a year, she was being mentioned as a potential Senate candidate, and her committee assignments were upgraded to reflect her growing influence. Her debate performance became required. Viewing in political communication classes across the country, the way she remained calm under attack, prepared her counterpunch perfectly, and used the moment to make larger points about political integrity. Became a textbook example of effective political combat. 2 years later, in a rare interview, Barron Trump reflected on the incident. It was a wake-up call about the difference between politics as performance and politics as service. I learned that if you're going to enter public life, you better make sure your private beliefs align with your public positions, because eventually the truth comes out. Whether this represented genuine growth or another calculated political position remained to be seen. But for Jasmine Crockett, the victory was complete. She had exposed political cynicism, defended her own integrity, and provided a masterclass in how to handle political bullies. The recording that changed everything had done more than destroy one young man's political ambitions. It had reminded America what authentic political leadership looked like. This incredible confrontation shows how quickly the tables can turn in politics when preparation meets opportunity. If you want to see more explosive political moments like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Comment below. Do you think Barron Trump can recover from this political disaster, or is his future in politics over? Don't forget to share this video with anyone who needs to see what real political accountability looks like. This story demonstrates the power of authentic political discourse and the dangers of treating public service as performance art. In an era of political theater, moments of genuine accountability like this remind us what democracy is supposed to look like.